Truth is, I thought it mattered. I thought that
money
mattered. But does it bollocks? Not compared to how people matter.
Welcome, mention and other fine folks, to the Sunday Dispatch of the Black Letter, where we contemplate thoughts worth thinking. Our thoughts become our actions, and our actions become our destiny, something along those lines. We're trying to make the best of our lives here, especially while we're living in the upside down. And so let's see what we've got in the agenda today. Well, we've got some precious metals information, particularly about silver and how the mines are shutting down or have shut down, and how that's impacting the amount of silver available. We're going to take a look at the jobs numbers again, see if we can see through the smoke and fog of that nonsense and find out where things are really at. We'll also take a look at hyperinflation. Is it possible that the US will see hyperinflation? And then lastly, we'll take a look at the human brain's capacity for storage. It's possibly more than you think, maybe less than you would imagine. So here we go, let's start. World's two largest silver producers' mine supply cut drastically in April. The top two silver producers saw their combined silver output decline by 53%. To give you an idea of the amount of lost silver mine supply from Mexico and Peru, it was more than all the global gold production that month. Actually, it was 1.5 months worth of world gold mine output. Here you can see total Mexico monthly silver mine production, April 2019 to April 2020. So this is a rolling year. And you can see it's been cut by probably a third at least. Mexico's silver mine production declined by 40% in April 2020 versus April 2019. It seems like Mexico shut down fewer silver mines compared to Peru. And here's Peru. Total Peru silver monthly mine production April 2019 to April 20. Peru's silver mine production collapsed by 74% in April 2020 versus April 2019. So that's quite something. If you put them all two together, this is what you get. About a half, especially from February and before. March was down a little bit as probably the start of the pandemic happened. You can see here that this is 386 combined, is well below half of these recent numbers. Interesting. Mexico and Peru April silver production loss is 432 metric tons. The world estimated April gold production was 265 metric tons. Crazy. For whatever reason, Mexico didn't shut down as many silver mines as Peru, and who knows why that is. Perhaps Peru had was impacted greater by COVID, perhaps, or perhaps they were taking more of an abundance of precaution. Who knows? Regardless, you can imagine what this is going to do to the supply of silver in the short term, at least probably for the next several months, I would imagine. And of course, if we get another a second wave of this virus, things will be impacted even more greatly. And if the economy, as he talks about here in a minute, if the economy starts to circle the drain more so, people will start to fly towards precious metals. And we're already seeing gold up a little bit, almost at historic highs. And we'll see that happen to silver. And then watch out with a constrained supply and a big demand. Silver will likely go parabolic, I could imagine. None of this is a financial advice, of course. I'm just giving you my thoughts. Perhaps you will have different ones, but at least we can have a discussion and see where we're at. Regardless, I imagine other silver mines around the world were also shut down during April and May, so we still may see 40 to 50 million ounces worth of global silver output lost during these 2 months. When the nasty economic fundamentals kick in during the second half of 2020 and into 2021, I believe we're going to see a severe reduction in global economic activity. Thus, demand for base metals such as copper, zinc, and lead will decline. This will be the second impact on world silver mine supply, as 55% comes as a result of a byproduct-based metal mining. So that'll hamper even more supply constraints. I mean, it'll cause even more supply constraints on silver, of course, if the other mines and the demand for the other commodity metals are down. This is one of the reasons why I like to keep an eye on the silver market, what it's doing. As you know, the silver to gold ratio is certainly favoring silver, in my opinion right now, as the better investment. And so that's where I think I will continue to put a little bit of my money as I can save it up. A breakdown of where the jobs are coming back and where they may never fully return. CNBC has some good articles, but they're part of the establishment trying to drum up hope, I think, and create sort of, perhaps not knowingly, but giving us some false narratives. One economist said that the road to total employment recovery may take years for certain sectors, or worse, never occur. So, I mean, there's some truth-telling here for sure. Employment in clothing stores is up 202,000, but it's still down 40% compared to last year, wrote former Labor Department economist Betsy Stevenson. And these folks, unfortunately, waiters, service industry will be probably the most highly impacted. You can read this article if you want. I just want to look at a couple of these charts here that they have. Short-term job gains, long-term losses. Job gains in the last 3 months followed steep losses from the pandemic shutdown. Industries at the top of the chart saw the biggest short-term gains. Those to the right have posted the biggest gains year over year. So long-term job gains, short-term job gains, there aren't many at all, except a small amount of less than 10% for couriers and messengers, general merchandise stores, computer peripherals, building material stores. So these are long-term job gains and short-term job gains. These are long-term job losses, short-term job gains. So these are just as you can see, the short-term job gains, primarily clothing stores, sightseeing, transportation, furniture stores, bars, restaurants, personal laundry services, hotels, leisure, art, sporting goods, of course, apparel. So you can see a lot of this is in the retail service sector, and a lot of these bounced right back up because of the reopening, but they will be long-term casualties here for sure. And this, of course, down here, there's nothing in this quadrant, which is the long-term job gains. But here, the long-term job losses and the short-term job losses, I mean, these are really, really hurting. And here's the bouncing back percentage. As you can see, the only ones that have actually seen an increase, sort of year over year, if you will. Couriers and messengers. Coal mining is down. Bars and restaurants have come back up, as have clothing stores. This, folks, is your V-shaped recovery. See what it's done? Basically back to still about minus 20, 25%. Or minus 40% still down from where it was at its height. And I don't think we'll ever get this above zero again, at least not in the near term, that's for sure. So an interesting article. So when you hear people say, oh, we added 4.5 million jobs or whatever it was, or 4.3 million jobs yesterday, you have to take it with a grain of salt. They weren't really added. These were jobs that people had lost that have now come back. And of course, now we're shutting down again. So it's best case. I can only see this being a W-shaped recovery, and even that I think is overly optimistic. Jobs data officially broken. More people getting unemployment benefits than there are unemployed workers. And how does this work exactly? This sounds like nonsense, and it is. As the Department of Labor reported today, which I think was yesterday now, there were 19.29 million workers receiving unemployment insurance. And yet somehow, at the same time, the Bureau of Labor Services, or I think that's Bureau of Labor Services, also represented that the total number of unemployed workers is 17.75 million. So of course these numbers don't match, right? If you said this makes no sense and pointed out that the unemployment insurance number has to be smaller than the total unemployed number, then you are right. And indeed, for 50 years of data, that was precisely the case. So what's going on? I think what's going on is that these numbers are being massaged, manipulated, downright lied to by those in charge. I mean, how can you have over, just about 2 million more people receiving unemployment insurance benefits when apparently the maximum unemployed number is 17.75 million? It makes no sense. So obviously we've been lied to, frankly. I mean, that's what it is, right? Whether intentional or by accident. Unemployed workers versus continuing claims. You can see unemployed workers have always been higher than continuing claims because there's a bit of a lag for one thing. Now we have the reverse is true, right? You can barely see it, but it's over there. This is the unemployed workers, less continuing claims, right? So now it's dipped below. It's bizarre. We've never seen this since the 1970s. And yes, there is a forced explanation to justify how this may actually happen in the current situation where everyone is abusing jobless benefits. But in this theory, this should not be happening. And we fully expect that in the coming weeks, the already highly politicized BLS will quietly close this gap. Exactly. This is nonsense, folks. This is exactly here a great classic example of how these folks are manipulating the numbers, massaging the numbers for the current regime to try and pretend that things are better and that we're off to a V-shaped recovery. But eventually the people will just stop believing these numbers and they will have less and less an effect on the market, because as we've seen, every time the market dips, they come up with some nonsense numbers to try and improve it, right? Stunning surge in new CMBS delinquencies heralds commercial real estate disaster, and that's the commercial mortgage-backed securities. So it's for commercial real estate. And indeed, while April was ugly, May was even worse, but both pale in comparison to what the latest June remittance data. I don't understand real estate as exceptionally well, especially commercial real estate, but we'll go through this. I mean, most of it just can make sense by looking at the numbers here. So this is a percentage of these commercial mortgage-backed securities marked as 30 plus days delinquent, and you can see it's just, it's gone parabolic practically. And here's the delinquency status, as in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Of course, 60 days and beyond is certainly of concern. Here's a percentage of commercial mortgage-backed securities in grace period of or beyond a grace period, and so it's heading down. So if you take an optimistic take on this, the dart is that perhaps we have reached terminal delinquency velocity, meaning most of the borrowers that felt the need for debt service relief have requested it, or maybe not. Alternatively, if the fiscal cliff hits at the end of July without a replacement stimulus, expect a second wave, and certainly of new commercial real estate delinquencies. And it goes over about different types of loans that I'm not quite sure of. So, for example, the CMBS 2.0 numbers. But year over year, the overall US CMBS delinquency rate is up 748 basis points. That's 7%, 7.4%. The percentage of loans that are seriously delinquent, which is 60 plus days, in foreclosure, REO, or non-performing balloons, is now 6.25%, up 408 basis points for the month, up just over 4%. Here's the delinquency rate. You see, it's just, again, parabolic. However you look at these numbers, they're parabolic. So certainly with commercial mortgage-backed securities heading into delinquency, that means that these retailers or these commercial businesses that are supposed to be paying the rent are not. And if you're not paying your rent, that means you don't have the income to do it, which means you are not seeing the sales that you need in order to create the profit to pay all these expenses. I mean, when you start peering through the smoke and mirrors, you can start to see where things are really at. Let's take a look at hyperinflation, just as a thought process. Hyperinflation, absolutely everything you need to know. To wind up with true hyperinflation, some very bad things have to happen. The government has to completely lose control, and the populace has to completely lose faith in the system, or both at the same time. So will the US go down that path? TLDR, I don't think so. But I certainly think we will see robust inflation in time for the next perhaps 6 to 12 months, potentially. Professor Steve Hanke defines hyperinflation as when inflation exceeds 50% per month and lasts for at least 30 consecutive days. In hyperinflation, the money supply is going up, the velocity of money is going up, and the real GNP is going down all at the same time. Then he goes on about some of the steps to hyperinflation. And I think here in North America and the US especially, we're seeing some of them, but not all of them certainly. So government spending getting out of control, and I believe that is happening slowly. The central bank starts buying up government debt, which they're doing. There's a capital flight out of the currency. That's not happening yet. Bond sales fall. We haven't really seen that yet because we're in an asset bubble of bonds. Investors move into shorter-term bonds. I'm not sure about that. The government is forced to print more and more money. Well, they are, but not excessively yet. The velocity of money picks up. We certainly aren't seeing that. And then it goes into the other sort of things that are happening. Interest rates becoming very high. People start to no longer accept the local paper currency. Here's the bottom line. The larger the amount of outstanding debt is, the larger will be the potential increase in the money supply. The more the money supply grows, the more likely it is that there will be hyperinflation. And here's the Hanke-Kruse World Hyperinflation Table. You can see at the very highest, Hungary in 1946, the time to required for prices to double was just 15 hours. That's absolute madness. Can you imagine that? We have Greece here, of course. We have China, interestingly, a couple of times. There's China again. Here's France. A lot of this is Eastern Europe countries, a lot of South American, some African countries primarily. Zimbabwe again, that was the most recent one, 2017. Chile, the Philippines even, Germany of course, that was during the Weimar Republic. Below is a table of the current worldwide hyperinflation situation. Of course, Venezuela is ongoing at about 3,000% inflation, just outrageous. And the IMF is projecting it to get worse. Apparently Iran will get better, as will Brazil, but we'll have to see about that. And there's Venezuela's annual inflation rate, just absolutely monstrous numbers. What would cause hyperinflation to occur in the US? When the global economy encounters some domino chain combination of implosion, the threat of Great Depression 2.0 will come roaring back, bigger and uglier than before. At that juncture, it will be apparent to all that the Federal Reserve has run out of bullets. That is the point where true panic comes in. During these times, safety and liquidity will remain key concerns for investments. So these are some of the things he suggests. Gold and silver, of course, are probably most liquid. I would argue cryptocurrencies even more so. But of course, they're riskier. Gold and silver have certainly proved themselves over the millennia. Cryptocurrency is just over a decade old at this state. Real estate, of course, but the problem with real estate is the portability. Offshore investments can help. Equities are not really recommended. As he says here, I still look for US stocks to take an ultimate 90% hit, peak to trough, net of inflation during this period. So we'll see what happens. I think, of course, I think we can all agree that stocks are just way overvalued right now. Well, maybe we can't all agree, actually. I think there's a lot of people who think that this is just golden times. And the stock market is fairly valued, and in fact that we'll see all-time highs by the end of the year. And that's possible, but I don't seem to agree. Something interesting I thought, just to mix things up a little bit, the human brain's memory could store the entire internet. Researchers discovered that, unlike a classical computer that codes information as zeros and ones, a brain cell uses 26 different ways to code its bits. They calculated that the brain could store 1 petabyte or a quadrillion bytes of information. Interesting article. It's quite long, as you can see. So if you'd like to read it, the links are always below in the comment section, or just above the comment section in the description. And here, of course, I thought this was interesting too. So this is a petabyte from Wikipedia, which is basically 1,000 terabytes. Here you can see gigabyte, terabyte, petabyte, exabyte, zettabyte, and yottabyte. Down here in neurology, it is estimated that the human brain's ability to store memories is equivalent to about 2.5 petabytes of binary data. This number seems to be keeps going up, folks. At first, we thought it was much less than this. Now they think it's, well, that first article, which was from 2016, this one here, they suggested it was 1 petabyte. Wikipedia is now suggesting that it's a 2.5 petabytes. And their information here is from, okay, so 16 and 17, back from 2012, 2013. So there is some inconsistency in the data, but it's interesting to see. I think certainly that the human brain is probably capable of storing much more than that. I think it's potentially even capable of storing zettabytes, if not yottabytes of information, I would think, if we really understood it properly. But who knows? I just find this stuff fascinating. Physics, neurology, I don't understand it necessarily very well, but I still find it super fascinating. I thought it'd be something neat to sort of finish up on. But before we finish up and get to the online oracle, let's take a look at the markets, just briefly see how we're at today. Here we go. So we can see that the S&P 500, Dow 30, NASDAQ, and Russell are all slightly up. We'll see if that lasts. Crude oil is down a bit and gold is down. Kardashian's deal might not make her a billionaire yet. Can we stop promoting people who are only well known because of a sex tape? I mean, you do a sex tape with Kanye West, and now you've become a billionaire because you started a little bit of a perfume or a clothing business. It's insane, folks. It goes to show you how off the rails our society has come, in my opinion. Okay, and here's the gold and silver spot price. Silver up a little bit at 18, and gold still holding steady just below 1800. Interesting. Okay, on to the online oracle. Okay, so the question I have for the online oracle, the 8-ball economist, is can the human brain store more than an exabyte of data? As we saw over here, currently we believe the human brain can store about 2.5 petabytes of binary data, and an exabyte is an order of magnitude larger. So let's see. Tell us. Shake the 8-ball. As I see it, yes, there you go, folks. So according to the online oracle, the 8-ball economist, we can store more than an exabyte of data in our human brains. So perhaps we are only using 10% of our brains as a maximum. Of course, that's been debunked, but still, I think we're in the early days of understanding our physiology, our brain chemistry, of course, and in the early days of exploring the unknown, which could be the brain, could be physics, could be the universe out there. Anyway, I'm starting to ramble, so we'll end it there. Thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate you for doing that. I look forward to your comments down below. And if you have any questions about any of this, if you have any thoughts on the human brain or the economy or precious metals, cryptocurrency even, then have at it. Thanks so much, folks. Stay kind, stay well, stay healthy. And remember, dum spiro, spero.